Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Even though the sun's out and it's, well, I'm just saying that, it's just got behind some clouds, but even though the sun's quite nice, it's absolutely freezing and wet and damp and horrible today, but we've still got plenty to talk about and we've still got plenty to do in the garden, so welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, recycling part 3, and this is all about using pallets and the wood off pallets. Now, pallets, you can make a whole raft of things, and I just wanted to explain a few things that I've done over the years that I've actually made from recycled wood from pallets. And I'm going to run through these reasonably quickly because some of them are reasonably obvious, but some of them are less obvious. And if you're trying to make something, rather than going out and buying it, get yourself a few pallets out of a skip or you know, if anybody's having any building work done, you get them from there, and you can actually buy them as well if you know, you can't get hold of them any other way. But pallets are an ideal source of wood, and rather than them going to waste, you can recycle that wood quite easily. I have shown in earlier episodes how to dismantle a pallet without breaking the wood, but here's a few examples of things, 36 examples in fact, of things that you can make from the wood of pallets. Okay, so number one is raised beds. That's quite an obvious one. If you dismantle the wood from a pallet, or you even leave it in sections, you can make quite easily raised beds. The raised beds in this greenhouse are made from pallets, albeit them large pallets, but the actual wood from these raised beds in the greenhouse, and also this box at the end here you saw me making in December, is actually a pallet. So all that wood's recycled. The next one is a compost heap box, of course. Putting four pallets together, you can form a box which is really ideally the size. So it's a 4 foot by 4 foot cube, and that's an ideal size for making a compost heap. The next one is a temporary path. As you notice on my allotment, I always sort of walk across in rows, and rather than compacting the ground where you're walking, which is not bad for the soil or the plants in there, what you can do is cut a pallet up into 3 and make like little wooden walkways that you can put onto the ground, and so you're not walking on the ground directly, and also you don't get mud all over your shoes when you're trying to get vegetables out. So that's a really good idea. The next one is obviously fencing and gates. A lot of the fencing that you've seen, all of the fencing around the rhubarb before I replaced it was made from pallets. Obviously the one that's there now is made from a shed, as you know, but what was there before was made from a pallet, and there is wood on there from pallets. In fact, some of the wood is actually from a pallet, but the majority of it was an old shed. The next one is a working bench. This is a pallet, and as you saw me again in I think it was either December or January making this. This is just 2 pallets, which has made a really nice bench for the greenhouse. If I'd have gone out and bought this, I'd have probably spent £100. It cost me nothing. So again, a pallet can make any workbench or anything like that. Number 6 is shelving. The shelving that you see, that actually the camera's sitting on at the moment, and also shelving that's in the shed that you might have seen, and also in the chicken hut, is made from old pallet wood. So you can very quickly knock some shelves together for your potting shed or whatever out of a pallet, rather than going out and buying more wood. The next thing is shuttering. The shuttering that you see around the asparagus outside, and I've also had it round other plants in the garden in the past, is made from pallet wood. So that's just to hold the earth back, or the mulch that I've put down, to neaten it up and to stop the birds from throwing it onto the path. So shuttering. Also, when I concreted the draining last year down the bottom, I used pallet wood to make the shuttering for the concrete. So that's another one. I've also made sheds out of pallets. I've made a couple of sheds out of pallets, to be honest with you. Bench stroke seat, not this type of bench, the bench that you sit on, I've made out of pallets before now. And you can make quite nice ornate sort of rustic looking benches for your allotment or your garden out of pallets. If you want more information on that, I can explain that a bit better. Obviously, pallet wood is really good for firewood as well, because it's you can start and keep your fires going with pallet wood. And if you've got a log burner in your shed or even in your greenhouse, obviously it's good fuel for that. And what I would suggest you do is make something, and the offcuts you use for firewood. The next one is a planter. You can make a wooden box out of pallets to make a planter, to put your plants in for your patio. Box lids. This for the wormery is an old pallet, so obviously you can make boxes for wormeries or compost heaps or anything like that quite easily. The next one is a cold frame. Obviously, making a frame to put your glass on. You can use a pallet to do that. The next one is I've made a rose arch before out of some pallets by making some like trellis work and making a complete frame for a rose arch for roses to grow around. Get trellis, as I've just mentioned, is very easily made from pallets. All you need to do is cut the wood into strips and then nail them together in a cross or a diamond shape, and you can make lots of, from one pallet you can make loads of trellis, to be honest with you, because there's not that much wood involved. And obviously all you need to do is paint it up with fence paint, and it's almost like you bought it. The next one is secure tool case. You can actually make a wooden box, because pallet wood's typically quite thick. So if your allotment is quite far away from your house, you can secure your tools in there and obviously put a lid on it, lock it, hinges, etc., so nobody can nick your tools. The next one is a fruit cage. I have made fruit cages in the past. They're typically only kind of 4 foot high, but most brassicas you can get in there. If you haven't got a ton, if you're just growing a few brassicas, you can make a frame out of pallet wood and then put some mesh around there to keep the birds and everybody else off. The next one is a bird table. If you make something exactly like that with some wood across the bottom and nail that on top of a post, you've got yourself a really nice bird table, which the birds will be more than appreciative of. You can actually cut a circular hole in there as well, and you can sink either a dish or a jam jar or something like that for a water source for them. The next one is a bird box. You can actually make for birds to nest in, to put up on your shed or whatever. That's very easily made out of pallet wood. The next one's a table. If you get something like that or slightly bigger, or something like this size, all you need to do is put 4 legs on it, which are the thicker bits off a pallet, and you can easily make a table to for you to have your lunch at when you're up your allotment outside. The next one is a chicken coop. My first chicken coop, in fact my first 2 chicken coops were made out of pallet wood. They were reasonably small. They were only kind of 4 foot high, but they perfectly they serve perfectly well made out of pallet wood. The next one is a chicken run. My first 2 chicken runs were also made out of pallet wood, and that was just making strips, making framework and putting chicken mesh over them, and they worked very well indeed. You can make a hedgehog shelter, which is basically just a wooden box about 1 foot tall by about 2 foot by 2 foot, and put that under a place which is nice and quiet in your gardens to encourage hedgehogs into your garden. Obviously they'll eat all your slugs, etc. But it's nice if you make a box and put straw in there, they'll actually overwinter or sort of nest in there. The next one is I've actually made an entire greenhouse out of pallets in the past. This greenhouse was 14 foot long and it was 7 foot wide, and that was made out of pallet wood. Obviously there was glass involved as well, but the wood was from pallets. You can make a raft if you've got a large pond or something in your garden. You can actually make a raft out of pallets. Obviously you need some barrels or something else that's buoyant underneath it. But if you've got a lot of weed in your pond or wherever, you need to get out there to get at it. What you can do is quickly make a raft type thing out of a pallet and put some buoyancy underneath there, and you can use that to step on to get into your pond. The next one is a potato box and an apple box. What I've done before in the past is make boxes which are about very similar to what we used to have back in the 50s and the 60s, where markets don't tend to have them anymore, but you can make boxes sort of 2 foot by 2 foot, and you can store your apples and your potatoes in there. And if you make them all the same size, they'll stack on top of each other, so you can store potatoes and apples and stuff in your shed quite easily. The next one is a seed tray. You can actually make small seed trays. Obviously now we always use the plastic ones, but before we got them we had to use wood. So what you can do is basically make, you know, something the size of a normal seed tray out of wood, and then you can, you know, put your compost in there and put your seeds in. You can also make a compost tray, which is basically a box where you empty your compost in from your bags, and then you can use that to fill your trays or your pots from there, which is quite convenient in the greenhouse. I've actually got one of them in the shed. You've never seen that on video, but there is one in the shed I've made from pallet wood. There is you can also make a rabbit hutch or a guinea pig hutch out of pallet wood. You can also slightly go a bit bigger than that and make a dog kennel, which I have done in the past as well. But you know, guinea pigs and rabbit hutches are very easily made from pallet wood and are going to cost you nothing again. So rather than going out and spending £100–200 on a rabbit hutch, just make one out of a pallet. It's very easy, and there's a lot more enjoyment for you and your children to be had by doing that rather than just going out and buying one. And to be honest with you, the ones that you buy from the shop are probably going to have chipboard and plywood on, where if you use proper wood, it's going to last you, you know, at least the life of the rabbit or the sort of guinea pig. Another really simple one is a ramp. Just by putting some wood together like that, you can put it, if you've got a raised step coming into your shed or your greenhouse, you can make a ramp like that to get your wheelbarrow in and out easily. The next one's a row marker. If you get the strip of wood off a pallet and mark out 9 inches and 1 foot along there, you can mark out where your rows need to be and how far apart your onions etc need to be. Number 33 is a line core. The straight lines that you put on the garden, the 2 end pieces that you stick in the ground, can be made from wood from a pallet. Number 34 is a plant spacer. Again, a piece of wood with marking on. I think that's probably a bit of a repeat of 32, to be honest with you. The next one, I've made tool handles from a pallet by turning you need a lathe to do this, but I've actually turned the longer pieces of wood down off a pallet to make handles for shears and also for an axe. And the last one, but not least, is you can make a riddle. If you make a box out of a square shape out of the pallet wood and put some chicken mesh underneath, put your dirt in there, and you can riddle all of the stones and everything out of the soil. So that's 36 ways of using or reusing the wood from pallets. Okay, so this is Mother Nature Part 12, and in Mother Nature Part 12 we're going to be talking about carbon and how that has a massive effect on your garden. Not only is it needed for plants to breathe, but it's also needed for the ground and the soil to hold the moisture and the nutrient within there to stop them from leaching away from your plants. So carbon is quite critical to how your garden will function, and you're always better to have a garden which is rich in carbon, because without carbon your garden will basically be a desert and you won't be able to grow anything correctly. So carbon is a really important element to have within the ground. Carbon is everywhere. It's in the ground, it's in the air, it's in the plants, and it's in animals, and it's what makes us up. We're all carbon-based life forms, just like plants are. And it's basically one of the main building blocks of plants, and I'll come on to how plants are using it in the next little bit. But carbon in the soil holds the moisture and all the nutrients together, and it's like a binding agent within the soil, which helps the soil to function as a living matter, if you like. And that carbon will, as the ground breathes, that carbon will then change into carbon dioxide and rise from the ground. And the carbon dioxide is what your plants will breathe for photosynthesis to occur, and for the plants to make the cells that they need to to build their stems, their roots, their leaves, etc. So carbon is really important. To grow large and vigorous and more resistant to diseases and pests, you really do need to feed as much carbon, organic material, into the garden as you possibly can do, and you really can't have too much of it. So all brown matter is heavily carbon, and you know, you need to be digging as much of that into the ground as possible, and you also need to be augmenting that with a nitrogen rich compound such as coffee or etc., or comfrey, because as the structures of that carbon organic material break down within the soil, the bacteria is going to need nitrogen to be able to do that, and the microorganisms. So when you're digging copious amounts of carbon into your garden, you almost also need to augment that with a nitrogen rich substance. So carbon exists in the air as carbon dioxide, and this makes up around 0.04% of the Earth's atmosphere. So that's something like 400 parts per million of the air is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is quite a heavy gas, and if you ever see any pop videos and stuff like that, that smoke that's sort of tumbling over the edge of the stage that sort of sits quite low down, that's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is most certainly a greenhouse gas, and because it holds heat within inside the Earth's atmosphere, and over the last 200 years, because of the Industrial Revolution and the burning of fossil fuels in coal, wood, and also oils and that in cars, petrol, etc. Over the last 200 years, the carbon dioxide quantity within the atmosphere of the Earth has gone from 280 parts per million to almost 400 parts per million. So we need to be, you know, from an environmental point of view, we need to be careful. But most certainly in the garden, the plants that we grow will take this carbon dioxide out of the air. So you really are helping the environment. However small your garden may be, you're most certainly contributing to the taking this excessive carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere by growing plants, and these plants will then put the carbon into the ground, you know, rather than being in the atmosphere. So carbon, there's a cycle with most things in the garden. Like we've got a water cycle where we get evaporation, then we get rain, precipitation, and then we sort of collect the water, then it evaporates again. All this type of cycle. With carbon, there's a very similar cycle to that, and the first one is where the first step in the carbon cycle is where the carbon exists in the ground and it reacts with air, the oxygen within the air, and forms carbon dioxide, and then that comes out of the ground to the plants. The second step in there is with the carbon dioxide, the plants breathe through their leaves with a system called photosynthesis, and this is where sunlight and carbon dioxide, the energy comes from the sunlight to make the reaction occur. But we have carbon dioxide in the air, we have water in the plant itself that it's got from the ground, and what the leaves will do in the plant, it will turn the carbon dioxide and the water inside the plant into oxygen, so the plant will give off oxygen. It also forms glucose and also fructose, which are basically two hydrocarbon molecules which will then exist inside the plant. The plant then uses the glucose and the fructose inside the plant to form cellulose. Cellulose is what's used by the plant to form the cell membranes. In other words, like the shell of the plant cells. And this is the same substance which is used in the roots, in the stems, in the leaves, in the flowers, the fruits, the vegetables, everything is the cellulose. So obviously without the carbon dioxide in the air, the plants can't even form sufficient amounts of cells to even stand upright. So plants wouldn't grow at all or be able to form roots, etc. So it is really important. So the plants, as they grow, they breathe, they're turning the carbon dioxide in the air along with the water out of the ground into oxygen, which they release back into the atmosphere, which is all good for us, and glucose and fructose. That mechanism will go throughout the plant's life, to the point where the plant dies. or it's it's either finished its season if it's an annual, or if it's a perennial. Certain branches may fall off or whatever and die. Then the carbon that it's actually got within the cellulose in the cells within the wood or within the plant are then held within the plant, and as the plant goes down to the ground, it will then basically break down into the elemental carbon that you get in the ground, and so basically at that point the flora and the fauna, so the bacteria, the microorganisms, the insects, the millipedes and the centipedes, etc., in the ground will then eat this matter and break it down into the the sort of the elemental carbon, which will then form into carbon dioxide again, and then will be released potentially into the to the air for a plant to reuse that again. So this is then held within the soil, and then the final stage is the ground breathes, and the air passes in and out of the ground as it expands and contracts during the warmth of the day and the cool of the night, and this carbon dioxide then is diffused out of the ground and back into the atmosphere for the plants to collect, and so the cycle continues. So the reason I've explained all of this to you in very simple terms is it's really important that we get plenty of carbon within the ground, so that the atmosphere around our plants in the greenhouse and also out in your allotment plot is rich in carbon dioxide, so that the plants have got everything that they need to perform photosynthesis, for them to build their cells, for them to grow and produce the vegetables that we're all after. So it's really important that you get plenty of organic matter into the ground. As always, if you get the ground right and full of nutrients and carbon, you can't go wrong. If you plant anything within that ground and you've got the right nutrients, the water and the carbon within that ground, every plant will grow and be successful and give you considerably bigger yields and fruits that you would potentially expect if you hadn't put anything in the ground. Okay, so in the Mother Nature parts of the video, I've covered quite a few things. So far I've not really talked about plants themselves. All I've really talked about is I've touched on a few pests and pest controls, and I've talked about the ground, which is one of the most important things, and I've also talked about water. So on in the episode, the fourth video in January, I was talking about banana and limonene. In the 7th video in January, I was talking about the soil and pesticides that you can make. In the video, the 8th video in January, I was talking about soil moisture and nutrients, and also in the same video I was also talking about slugs and aphids. In February, on the 2nd video, I was talking about clay in the soil and how you can deal with that. And the 3rd video in February, I was talking about the uses of garlic to control aphids, slugs and a whole manner of other things, ants. Also in that, in the 3rd video of February, I was talking about mycorrhizal fungi and how that can be used to enhance your plant roots. On the 5th video in February, I was talking about biological controls. On the 6th video in February, I was talking about composting and gardening, and again that composting continued on with the slow composting and the wormeries in the 7th and 8th video of this month. And in the 10th video, which is this one, I've talked about water dependency. So moving forward, I'm just going to quickly list what's coming up in the next month or so. Excuse me. So we've got, coming up is the carbon cycle in Mother Nature part 12. In part 13 we've got crop rotation. In 14 we've got making mycorrhizal fungi. In 15 we've got crop rotation again, part 2. There's the more in-depth look at that. In 16 I really start talking about plants, and this is where I'm starting to talk about plant biology, botany, all about the how a plant works and how a plant breathes, all about photosynthesis and all these types of things. So that's coming up in part 16. Part 17 is going to be talking about plant diversity, which follows on from the botany part. Number 18, which is quite important, is the sunlight one. I'm going to be talking about how to sort of use sunlight to the max in your garden, which plants like it and which ones don't, and how more of it or less of it will actually affect the way that the plant grows and yields fruit and vegetables. In Mother Nature Part 19, I'm going to be talking about weather systems and climate. In Part 20, I'm going to be talking about companion planting, which is where you plant more than one plant together to accompany each other, where one will be either stopping certain pests from going on to the other one, or will be a sacrificial plant for the other one, or they just grow nicely together and they augment each other's behaviour. I'm going to be talking in Part 21, I'm going to be talking about propagation of plants and how you can grow your own plants and save your own seeds. In Part 22, I'm going to be talking about the disorders that plants can get. Now, I've mentioned pests and diseases. I'm going to be talking about disorders, which is slightly different. I will be touching on the pests and the diseases again, but it'll be the physiological disorders that plants can get and how you can deal with that. In 23, I'm going to be talking in a bit more detail about plant diseases and how you can avoid, spot them early, and how you can avoid and cure them. In Mother Nature 24, I'm going to be talking about more pests that you can get in the garden and how you can control them. And in 25, which is quite an important one, I'm going to be talking about garden hygiene. There are more after that, but I don't want to sort of reel out a whole list. But as you can see, there's plenty more of these Mother Nature sections coming up, and they're going to be put out 1 or 2 a week for the next month or two. So thanks for watching this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. I really do hope that it was some use to you and informative. Please do put any comments that you've got below, any questions. I'm always happy to respond to anything that you might have a question on. And thank you for supporting this channel, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.